Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Just kidding. Graveyard Flowers, thank you for coming back. If you haven't subscribed, please feel free to click that little subscribe button. Otherwise, I won't be offended if you don't. I don't really do this for anything other than just to keep myself busy. Um, but anyway, so today we're going to do a little topic of discussion that I've been seeing that has been cropping up all over social media. Well, I shouldn't say all over social media, related to foodie beauty social media. And it's been driving me insane. So this one today is going to be about opiates. As you guys know, if you watch any of my other videos, I do let you guys know I am by profession, I am a nurse, but I'm also a human being. I am not a doctor and I'm not attempting to diagnose, offer any treatment. The only advice that I actually provide is to see your doctor. If you have any comments, any questions, anything like that, please, 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 please always go and see your doctor. See your doctor at least once a year. Hell, you've been seeing a doctor since before you were born. Did you even think about it like that? You've been seeing a doctor since before you were born, and you should be going at least every year to check in with him or her and make sure everything's on the up and up. Don't ignore things until they become an emergency. Sometimes it happens. I'm guilty of that too. But save your life, save your own life, save a friend's life. Encourage everybody to please just go see your doctor. They don't bite. Unless you watch Investigation Discovery, and then sometimes, yeah, they do, but that's a whole different story, okay? That's a whole different story. But today's topic, I wanted to kind of come across simply because it's really driving me insane lately. As we can see, there's been a lot going on in the foodieverse. You know, we discovered, yes, she went back to Nader. She was supposed to be getting an apartment in Montreal with him. She went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And as of today, she hates him. As of today, she peed on Dee Dee's sheets. As of today, for all we know, she's still sleeping in her own pee sheets. God, that's so gross. I do actually have that entire drunk stream recorded where she drank like 3 bottles of Moscato, and that's highly concerning for somebody who has openly shared that she has an extreme non-alcoholic fatty liver. Um, Drinking 3 bottles of Moscato in, I think it was like a 4 hour period. One of those bottles, okay, your average bottle is 750 mLs. So roughly, I think that's like 32 ounces, if I remember correctly. I don't have a calculator to do the math right at the moment. Anyway, so roughly, that's a pretty goddamn big bottle of Moscato. Moscato is very sweet. I do live in California, and I'm not a wine snob, but I do know my wines. um, whew, Lord. But anyway, coming today as not only a nurse, but as a human being. So these are all my opinions, my observations, but they do come with somewhat of a medical perspective. No, I'm not a doctor, but as a nurse, you are trained to observe and report. So if I see something that indicates something hinky going on, I got to report it to the doctor if it's an emergency. So on Twitter, somebody had posted this particular community tab, and rather than pull it up on Twitter because it's kind of old, it's about 8 or 9 days old at this point, people were commenting on Chantal's pupil size. And we know that this has been an issue in the past, so I'm actually going to pull up right here. This is the actual community post that I'm referring to. So it was 8 days ago. She says, "Hi, in Montreal today, wore the same shirt last time, LMAO, 38 years old. We'll be live later, XO." And everybody's, just losing their damn minds because if you really do zoom in on the photo, hopefully I might actually be able to right now. Maybe not. I don't know. If you really do zoom in on this photo, you can see her pupils are pretty constricted. So everybody jumped on that bandwagon. Everybody just went absolute apeshit Oh my God, she's on opiates. Oh my God. They lost their minds. You guys, sometimes I just wonder like what some people learn in school, but in medicine, doctors like to use what's referred to as Occam's razor, or you might have actually heard the term, and this is kind of a simplified version of it, a very simplified version of it, is that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Okay, so what can we observe about this photo? We can see there's a seatbelt. She's obviously in a car. The lighting is pretty bright. She's in a vehicle during the daytime. Okay. Um, so nurses are taught what were referred to as PERLA. It's PERLLA. PERLA. Its pupils are equal, round, reactive to light and accommodation. Did I say that right? PERRLA? Wait. Equal, round, I'm sorry, PERRLA. My little R's and L's get backwards. Sorry about that. So it stands for pupils are equal, round, reactive to light, and accommodation. Her pupils are equal, they are round, and they're quite obviously reacting to light. When you're in bright lights, your pupils will constrict. That's how it protects your retinas from being burned out by the sun. When you're in dim lighting, your pupils need to open up so that they can absorb more light. Because even though observably you think you're in a pitch black room, you're really not. There is kind of truly nothing, unless it's a specially modified room. But if you're in a natural environment, there's really truly nothing as like zero light. The Earth has a certain amount of solar reflection from, the sun, stars, moon, other distant planets, just natural light sources. Your eyes can only have only evolved to absorb so much of that light. So of course, to the human eye, certain things might look like they're pitch black, but they're really not. So a lot of people were losing their damn minds. And I've been seeing it coming up over and over and over and over again because people are just absolutely insistent that Chantal is on opioids. Stop right there. Because a lot of people don't even realize what an opioid is. As part of nursing, we do actually give pain medications on the regular. The most common opioids that we administer in hospital, and truly you can only really get this in hospital, are Dilaudid and morphine. Morphine being one of the oldest, if not the oldest. It's derived from the opium poppy, henceforth the title opiates. Opium, opiates, right? So long ago, medicinally speaking, long before modern medicine, I mean, like early 1800s and beyond, okay? Um, they found there was a medicinal purpose in the opium flower, opium poppy flower. I should actually pull up a picture of it. They're quite lovely looking, believe it or not. But anyway, there were medicinal properties that were found in it. Unfortunately, over time, we discovered that once it was isolated, it was a highly addictive uh, medicine. Originally, they'd smoke it, they would turn it into a tincture or a salve, they could absorb it through the skin, they could absorb it through digestion, so on and so forth. Eventually, the hypodermic needle was invented. I think it was in the mid 1800s. And it was, of course, became an injectable. And of course, they became like an actual isolated fluid and so on and so forth. And it was used during the major wars that were occurring during that time because a lot of soldiers were losing limbs to war. And that germ theory came into play, and doctors were actually able to cut off limbs if needed, during war. And then they would give morphine, obviously, and they found out, it has a very sedating property, which means, it knocks soldiers out so that they weren't suffering from so much pain. Um, it was a very widely used drug, and it was very effective. But the problem was it became a drug of addiction. So, through the modernization of medicine, I guess you could call it that, over time, they noticed that morphine was causing a lot of addictions. They were trying to stop its use and potential abuse. Um, so they invented a drug to help addicts get off of that drug, off of morphine, I mean. And so they invented heroin, which y'all are a little bit more familiar with, probably, if you ever been through the DARE program. So heroin was invented as a way to help people get off of morphine addiction. We saw how that turned out. So, to help with heroin addiction, they invented methadone. And methadone is still in use today. I think it's probably at the moment kind of still the most effective. And I could be wrong. Trust me, I could be wrong. Hmm? Okay. It's probably one of the most effective ways to help people kick their heroin addiction. Or in some cases, there are still people who are morphine addicts. It's very rare in the United States, because, and I just know this from personal experience, is that in hospitals, in order to um, help fight theft of drugs, the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency of the United States, has strict protocols for hospitals and their pharmacies, um, how the doctors dispense the medications, prescribe the medications. And then for me alone, like if I have a patient that's going into, say, palliative or hospice care, and they're on a morphine drip, I actually have to, as a nurse, use a special key that's under special lock. There's like literally like 5 locks and keys that I have to go through in order to get the key to get the bag of morphine and then hang it. And then I have to sign, date, dispense, scan with a scanner. I mean, it's a process in order to hang a single bag of morphine. Okay. And then if you guys have ever heard of Dilaudid, its generic name is hydromorphine. I can't say it. Hydromorphone. Morphine. Okay. Morphine, morphone, right? It's a synthetic version, and it was invented, I think, not as a not how like heroin was invented for morphine. Hydromorphone is much more potent in smaller doses. So, say for example, and I'm just pulling numbers out of my butt, okay? This isn't truly like the number game. So don't try and come at me and be like, that percentage is wrong. Um, I'm just pulling random numbers. So you have hydromorphone, 0.1 micrograms. Okay, micro, not milligrams, not grams, micrograms. Okay, 0.1 micrograms is the equivalent of 1 gram of morphine. Okay, I'm just using simplified numbers, right? And use simplified dosages. Very simple. Micrograms. That is a tiny, tiny, tiny amount compared to 1 full gram of morphine. Okay, so that's why, and you're hearing all these street drug problems where people are getting things that are laced with, say, like, um, I don't know, fentanyl and stuff like that. It's because in a very, very, very tiny dose, like one little grain of sand versus the entire ocean, potency wise. So, um, you're hearing all these kinds of things, and it's really bad. It really is bad. And sadly, in the chain of things, there are some nefarious people in medicine, And there's nefarious people, and this isn't just in, the United States alone. Um, there are, manufacturers who will manufacture, say, morphine in Guatemala. I don't know. I'm just randomly pulling countries out of my butt here. Um, they'll say, in France, this pharmaceutical company, and they have Joe Blow employee helps manufacture on the line of morphine. Well, he doesn't get paid enough for what he does, so he just sneaks out like a little vial here and there. It doesn't get into the count. He cooks the books, sneaks that little vial out to whoever's paying him. They pay him $1,000 for that little vial, and that little vial ends up, tucked into like a little stuffed plushie of Baby Yoda, and then shipped overseas, makes its way to Canada, or makes its way to China, or makes its way to Russia, or whatever, to Belize, I don't know, and then gets further distributed. There are, unfortunately, nurses and doctors, pharmacists, and other people who have access to those medications, typically nurses, doctors, and pharmacists only, who accidentally sneak out, a half a vial of morphine or something like that. Now, because of that situation, there have been crackdowns throughout hospitals to ensure that these drugs are wasted properly. So if my doctor tells me that I can give one single, I'm sorry, if my doctor puts out an order, tells me to give the patient a half a milligram dose of morphine to the patient every 2 hours for their pain, and the vial itself is 1 milligram, right? That means there's going to be a half a milligram left in that vial. What do I do with it? I have to go and find another nurse to be my witness in order to properly waste it. Accidents do happen. This actually happened to me, so I'll give my own example. I was in a room with a patient who unfortunately was passing away from HIV. He was in a lot of pain, and he was on round-the-clock morphine to help his pain. I was just finishing up my morning, and I had just given him his dose of morphine. I'm standing there in the doorway. Something really bad is going on in the room across the hallway, which is my other patient. So I just, tucked my morphine half little vial into my locked drawer, and I needed to go and see what was going on with my patient across the hallway. Come to find out, that patient, who was also a cancer patient, had the cancer itself had wrapped itself around his carotid artery, which is the artery in your neck. And unfortunately, his artery finally burst, and he was bleeding severely. So trying to save his life and stop him from bleeding became really important over making sure that I wasted that extra morphine. So once the situation was handled, unfortunately that patient did not survive, but in his particular situation, that was not to be unexpected. It was going to happen eventually, but unfortunately it did just happen on my watch, sadly. He was basically one heartbeat away from his artery bursting. That's how bad his cancer had invaded, and it was really sad because he was so sweet. My other patient who I had given the morphine to was kind of a similar situation. I spent so much time with that guy. I won't go into it too much, but he was a very sweet patient, and I was more than happy to help control his pain as much as possible to make his passing comfortable too. I just would never have it in my heart to see him hurt. He was such a sweet, sweet patient. But anyway, that little vial of morphine, however, from the time I had taken it out of the pharmacy lock drawer, put it into my cart, scanned it, gave it, and then put it back in there, went over to the other patient to help try and save his life. And then, of course, everything that happened, there was I can't remember the exact amount of time, but it was probably about a good hour and a half, 2 hours before I could actually waste the medication. So, like a week or two later, pharmacy came after me. They wanted to know why it took so long for me to take out, remove, and dispense and return, or not return, but to waste the remainder of this medication. I literally had to write out an entire report saying I had to try and save this guy's life over worrying about whether or not this morphine was wasted. And it was, I mean, the entire time it was locked in my drawer. Nobody had true access to it. I mean, if you used a crowbar, you probably could have gotten to it, but I would have noticed that. It's not like I just left it out, like for anybody. And plus, it was at 4 o'clock in the morning, I think. So visiting hours were long over. There was nobody there except for the employees. But anyway, I digress. The reason why I'm saying this is that opioids are not a very easy drug to just come across. It's not to say that there aren't street drugs that are out there. It's not to say that they're completely inaccessible because, as we know, in-home drug abuse is becoming a problem where, say for example, three generations live in the same household and grandma was given a prescription for, say, Norco, which with Norco, that's actually really it's a combination drug. So it's an opioid plus Tylenol or acetaminophen. I'm trying to use generics here. Um, so, grandson, who's a teenager, says, "Hey, grandma has some 10-325s in here. I could take one or two of those and sell them to my friends at school and make a little extra cash." Stuff like that does happen, and it's actually becoming a bit more of a problem. So it's not to say that Chantel doesn't have access to opioids, but you guys, we need to look at the environment and not jump to conclusions, is my point here. So I know I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent, but I kind of do want to educate people on not jumping to conclusions. So I'm very concerned for her recent health. She's been complaining that her breathing's been getting really, 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 really difficult. And you can even hear it. I mean, just walking from the refrigerator to the stove is too taxing for her breath. Like, and I've been doing I've been working on something. It kind of sucks because my partner has been working in Hollywood for 30 plus years on the film editing side. Um, if you've ever seen Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul or Family Guy or what else has he worked on? A lot of other stuff. You can say thank you, him. Just say thank you, him. I love those shows. Oh, Bob's Burgers. That's my other favorite one. Um, but anyway, most of the stuff he does, I don't actually watch. Except for Bob's Burgers. I really love Bob's Burgers. Anyway, but he's been helping me to edit some stuff together. So it's been involving Chantal specifically. And I've been going through some of her older videos. And I did actually go back to one of them where she was describing her pulmonary embolus. And so pulmonary emboli is blood clots in the lungs. And just yesterday, God, this was so annoying. She's self-diagnosing herself with pulmonary hypertension. And I'm like, girl, the other day you went to whatever that store was. You're riding around in the cart. You got up out of the cart for 10 seconds, sat yourself in that machine, and your blood pressure was 152 over 90. If you have pulmonary hypertension, your blood pressure is going to be in the very opposite direction, my friend, okay? Pulmonary hypertension, it's kind of a misnomer because you hear the word hypertension and people think, oh my God, elevated blood pressure. But no, it's actually hypertension in the pulmonary arteries, pulmonary veins, pulmonary arteries, and it actually will cause low blood pressure because it's not getting effectively pushed out of the heart. So it drops your blood pressure versus increases it. Um, so It's just something I deal with in my particular hospital, in my particular unit setting often. Respiratory failure is really fun. Not. But what I am really concerned about, yeah, her breathing is getting worse. She said that she's out of her one of her puffers, which another thing that I'm kind of confused because she did mention um, the name of a couple of her puffers, and but the thing was that didn't make sense was she was treating the puffer, which was a steroid. There's two different kinds of treatment. And actually, I was just reading this the other day on Twitter because I follow a lot of med Twitter too, because I can learn from the doctors too. Being a nurse, you're never not learning. Um, and I just assume maybe it's because it's my unit because it's mostly respiratory failure patients and it's respiratory failure after anything. So you guys, it can happen to anybody, anytime, anywhere, at any age. Anyway, Um, but there's usually two different types of inhalers. There's fast acting and long acting. The steroid inhalers are long acting. The rescue inhalers are the fast acting ones. And the one that she was treating like a fast acting, she held it up. She said, I believe I want to say she said it was albuterol. I could be wrong. Anyway, we won't dwell on it. Um, anyway, but whatever she held up, when I heard it, I was like, wait a minute, that's a steroid. What are you talking about? So it's not making sense. And then she also just recently said that she's been out of her inhalers, so she's not using them. And I'm like, girl, if you need to go to the pharmacy because you can't breathe, go to the fucking pharmacy. Just I don't get why she like constantly puts this shit off. Like she would rather go to Starbucks, to Taco Bell, to Burger King and get her food fix than worry about whether or not she can breathe. It's like, girl, you can't breathe, so you can't eat. They share the airway, the trachea, and the esophagus share the same space. It's useless to try and eat if you can't breathe. Like, make that make sense. Her priorities just blow my fucking mind. I can't. Anyway, so let's turn this off real quick. We're gonna open up this one. So there's a very easy way. There's a very good chart, and this is something we were taught in nursing school too. A very easy way to tell, you know, who's on what and when and where and why. Okay, let's try and center this a little bit better, just so we can see what's going on. Okay, so constricted pupils. You're going to see the list is heroin, morphine, oxycodone, fentanyl, methadone, codeine, hydrocodone. Those are all under the class of, well, painkillers, sedating, painkillers, opioids, sedatives. When you're in pain, when you're sedated, are you hyper? Are you really hyper? Not really, if anything. And now I've had them before because I've had surgery. Okay. I had a PCA pump when I had my gastric bypass 11 years ago, and I hit that button. Ooh, I hit that button. A PCA pump, I'm sorry, to clarify, it's a special pump with a lockbox, and inside of it is little vial of, hydromorphone, dilaudid, well, it's the same thing, morphine, whatever the doctor's prescribed. And it's a pain medication or a pain delivery system. Pain medication delivery system. It doesn't deliver pain, I'm sorry. And you hit a button, and there's a special timer on it. There's a plunger. It's locked inside, so you can't just get into it. You hit the button, and it'll deliver a little bit of morphine, or it'll deliver a little bit of dilaudid. And that way, the nurse doesn't have to come in every 5 minutes and give it to you, or whatever the time being. Sometimes it's every 30 minutes, sometimes it's every hour, but the machine itself is programmed. So if you hit that button, you could hit it 50 times in an hour and it won't deliver you any more than what you've been prescribed. They do have their own problems, of course, because if the nurse, is tired, she reads the dosing as, 1 milligram versus 1 gram. She's either under medicating or potentially over medicating you. So sometimes the patient can accidentally give themselves 1 gram, and there have been sentinel events that's oopsies, really bad oopsies in the hospital. So some hospitals actually have a policy where they don't use PCA pumps because they want to avoid that risk. They would rather have the nurse come in, give the dose, go back out. Come in, give the dose, go back out. So I've tried these pain medications myself. I know how sedating they are. My last surgery was in 2019 where I'd had some lumps removed, and I was given Norco. And to be honest, opioids, I hate them. I actually, in general, I don't really like medications because I've found that ever since I had gastric bypass, all these medications cause really bad constipation. Opioids especially. So, and we know our girl is definitely not constipated. That's why I don't get why a lot of these people get addicted to these things, because God, the pain of trying to have a bowel movement, holy cow, it's ridiculous. But anyway, so with the slowdown of brain activity that helps the pain, it also slows down the rest of your muscles. So what else is worked by muscles, whether they're voluntary or involuntary, right? So you have opioids, they slow you down mentally, which a lot of people don't like opioids for that particular reason. Like they refuse to take their pain medications after surgery or dental work or whatever. They don't like taking them simply because they don't like the mental brain fog that they get. But what else is in your body that's also a muscle? Your heart. That's why you have to be extremely careful with things like Dilaudid and morphine. Also with Norco, with oxycodone, with all of these drugs, they can slow and even stop your heart. They stop your motor, or they not stop, they slow your motor function. So you move slowly, you talk slowly. Um, the pupillary reaction, and this actually confused me when I was in nursing school doing pharmacology, all that kind of stuff. The pupillary reaction, usually you would think that when your eyes are relaxed, they would open. So you think, oh, okay, morphine and Dilaudid and all this stuff, you get really relaxed. So you think that your pupils would actually expand, but they don't, they constrict. So in nursing, when we're looking at it, you know, a patient comes in, we check their pupils, we see, oh my God, their right pupil's really constricted. Oh my God. But their left pupil is very open. Do you think my automatic conclusion is that they're on opioids because that one pupil's constricted? No, by my observation, I'm actually going to think the patient's either suffered head trauma or a stroke. Because when you have unequal, we're going back to Perla, right? Pupils are equal, round, reactive to light and accommodation, right? If I see one pupil is bigger than the other, I'm going to assume that that person's having a stroke, unless, they just had a car accident or something like that. Or hell, they could have had a stroke and had a car accident and banged their head. So it could be a combination of things. But if I see both eyes are constricted like that and it's nighttime and they're coming in from outside in the dark and they're constricted like that, and other factors, are they moving slow? Is their speech slurred? What's their heart rate? What's their blood pressure? What's going on? Are they elderly? Are they young? Are they Joe Blow lawyer from off the street? Are they Joe Blow, fast food employee off the street? There's a lot of visual clues that nurses use to report to the doctor to say, hey, look, this might be an opioid overdose. Hey, this might be a stroke. Okay. So in this particular photo, you can see in the middle one, marijuana, cocaine or crack, benzodiazepines. I'm hearing that one get thrown around too, that everybody's, oh, she's on benzodiazepines. It's like, no, she's on atomic wheelchairs and she's on 1,000 milligrams. If you guys don't know what atomic wheelchairs are, I had to look it up because I'm not privy to specific strains and brands. I mean, I had a roommate a million years ago who was a total pothead. He smoked that stuff like cigarettes. Um, but I'm not, inclined to, oh, this is the purple kush or this is the pink azalea or, I had to look this stuff up. So atomic wheelchairs is an extremely potent THC gummy. And each quote unquote disc or wheelchair or whatever is 1,000 milligrams, right? The normal dosing for like an everyday person, if it's your very first time ever trying it, is like 5 milligrams. Five. She's doing 1,000 in one shot. Okay. So people get all up in arms thinking, oh, she's on benzodiazepine. She's doing this. She's doing that. She's doing the other. No, you guys, she's combining stuff. But benzodiazepines are also kind of along the lines of like morphine and heroin, or not heroin, morphine and methadone and hydrocodone and fentanyl. There's a very strict protocol in order to access them, and doctors are not privy to dosing them out. So benzodiazepines, most commonly you've heard of Valium or Ativan, right? Um, and a lot of doctors will not prescribe more than like a 30-day supply. Um, and that's kind of stretching it. If you go to an emergency department, emergency room, that might give you a 5 to 15 day supply. And I only know this because I do have a specific condition that in emergency treatment, I do have to get Valium. Yeah. Which again, I don't like these things. It's not because of the way they make me feel. It's the constipation. Prescription medications do that to me. And again, it's only been like that as far as I know since I had gastric bypass. So I don't know if it has something to do with the rerouting of my intestines, because it does slow stuff. These medications slow your stomach motility because that's an involuntary muscle, right? When you swallow, it's an involuntary muscle that carries the food into your stomach. Then the food past the pyloric belt and all the way out into the small intestine, to the jejunum, and on to the colon and on out the other end, right? You got like 21 feet of involuntary muscle. But anyway, so it slows it down. So it causes constipation when those slow down. Obviously, the best cure to prevent that is getting up and walking. Simple walking, because you're exercising your stomach muscles when you're upright and you're walking. You're pedaling those feet, you're moving your torso, those muscles are moving, and it helps get those involuntary muscles to also move. Does that make sense? Okay. So we know our girl, bitch don't walk for nothing. Sorry. No, she walks when it means that she has to go downstairs and get her Uber Eats herself, which is an extremely rare occasion, and also becoming a lot more concerning too. She's been sitting in that kitchen in the chair, and then she gets up and she's like, oh, my feet are asleep. That's concerning. Because if you're sitting upright in a chair with your feet on the floor, your feet should not have the circulation cut off. So that's screaming her diabetes is getting worse. If you're not familiar, diabetics do suffer from peripheral neuropathy because if you picture a human body, the furthest distance from the heart is the feet. So your heart has a lot more difficulty having to get that blood all the way to the tippy tips of your toey toes, right? So her extreme belly fat, and this is just kind of my theory on it. I probably am not wrong, but I don't want to obviously speak out of turn, but this is just kind of my theory after years of anatomy and physiology, is that when she's bent in half or bent at least, that 90-degree angle, so her legs are sitting out in front of her, but she's got that extreme amount of weight from her belly over her femoral arteries, which are the big arteries in your groin that carry that blood all the way down to your toes. It's like kind of like when you park a car on a garden hose and it cuts off the flow of water. Does that make sense? So she's, God, it's getting so concerning. I'm sorry. Her health. That's why I'm kind of spouting off and going off in great detail here. But anyway, to get back into this whole thing, is there are people that are saying, that she's using benzodiazepines and so on and so forth. Um, no, you can't really access those as easily and quickly. I mean, unless she has been hoarding them off of all of her previous um, jaunts to the emergency room. And I don't see her doing that. I see her actually going for it whole hog when she gets that full, she's going to take them all. So, but then she's been supposedly taking her antidepressants again. So she's been mixing that with the atomic wheelchairs and antidepressants. Like for me right now, because I'm going through some brain issues, I'm actually on, oh my God, what am I on? See, my brain isn't working now. Oh my goodness, I've actually forgotten it. Um, and I admit last night I was a bad patient. I forgot to take them. I actually fell asleep before I could actually take them. So I am on nortriptyline. It is classified as an antidepressant, and but I'm taking it because they use it in the management of migraines. Go figure, right? So I'm on nortriptyline for that. Um, and I'm on a couple of different other prescription medications. But knowing that nortriptyline has a sedating effect, it's only prescribed for me to take at bedtime and also not to take it with alcohol. Of course, I don't know for sure what Chantal is taking, so I can't say 100% for sure, but 99% of antidepressants that are commonly prescribed warn against taking them with alcohol. They also come with the warning of, do not drive or operate heavy machinery. You've all read that on the back of the Benadryl bottle once or not, once or twice, or on the back of whatever bottle of over-the-counter medication you might be taking. Until you know the effects of this medication, don't drive, don't drink, et cetera, right? Need a sip of my coffee, I'm sorry. Um, so we all are pretty well aware, because she makes us pretty well aware that she's taken a cocktail of things or not taking them consistently or potentially has a cocktail of Pete's medication that she's stealing. God only knows. But benzodiazepines, I'm very highly skeptical. Simply put, they're not easy to access. Morphine is near impossible to access, so unless she literally stole it out of a medicine cabinet, like if it was dosed for her grandmother when her grandmother was, there is oral morphine. Um, Typically, it's given to cancer patients who choose to go into hospice, stay at home. That's usually the only place you'll ever find it. And it's a highly controlled substance, highly controlled substance. You have to record every last drop of that stuff. Benzodiazepines, it's the same way. You have to record every last pill. If you accidentally drop one and when you're looking for it, say you're the pharmacist, you're preparing it, you drop one, it falls on the floor, your ass better find it and waste it, or you're going to be in big trouble. And I'm talking jail time, big trouble. Okay. Oh God, I was precepting a new nurse and he and I accidentally dropped I think it was in either an Ativan or an Ambien. I can't remember which one it was because it was so long ago. I spent like an hour crawling around on the floor trying to find that thing. And it was actually the whole blister pack. So it wasn't like we just dropped the pill, we dropped the entire blister pack. And we could not find it, but it was just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. We were panicking. The two of us were panicking. We spent 30 minutes trying to find it. Holy crap. So, just part of a nurse's job, right? So, anyway, moving back over, we see constricted, we see the red eyes. So, that's the marijuana, the cocaine or crack, the benzodiazepines, and the depressants. And then we go to dilated pupils. You'll see amphetamines. You'll see methamphetamines. You'll see cocaine or crack. Hallucinogens, so like LSD, mushrooms. You'll see, of course, some opioids. Opioids. Wow. Opiates. Some heroin. Some marijuana, and some speed. Right? So everybody's on this bandwagon of they're constricted, they're dilated, they're constricted, they're dilated, they're constricted, they're dilated. So let's take this back off the screen here. I wanted to kind of pop something else up because this actually is from Miss Mary Beth Wiley. It was posted back in October of last year. So unfortunately, I'm going to say go ahead and subscribe to her. Hopefully, you guys, this will get her a little bit more of a kick to make some more videos because she really does make some great videos. But she made this video. It's called Foodie Beauty. It's Just Edibles Part 2. What is she on? Okay, so let's pop this back up. Pop that guy back off. We're going to watch this. Let's actually put it in theater mode because it'll be a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit better viewing. So It's Just Edibles Part 2. So at this point, I think this was all recorded last summer. And this is when a lot of people were not trusting that she was off her little, I don't know what you want to call it, her little high. And she was claiming, oh, her loopiness was just the edibles. Now, I've mentioned this in other videos. There's some really cardinal signs that when you are snorting or sniffing a drug, it does cause irritation to the area of the nose called the nasal pharynx. Now, Chantal already has a narrow palate. So the palate is the upper part of your mouth. And you can see because her teeth, like the molar area, is closer together than quote unquote normal. I don't like using that word, but it's very close together, right? Her upper palate's very close together. With her history of breathing problems, breathing difficulties, and when she is off of stuff, you can hear her, snuffing very loudly. So she's a heavy mouth breather. She has sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is usually triggered if it's obstructive sleep apnea. It's triggered because people have an engorged nasal pharynx, back of the nose. That's the area where the nose leads into the throat. It's the nasopharynx. The mouth is the oropharynx. So it's naso, oro, and then I think it's laryngeal pharynx, if I'm saying it right. So as it goes further down, it's naso, oro, laryngeal, right? So hopefully I'm saying that right. I'm very particular about my pronunciation. You notice that? So here, she's claiming that she's not on all these drugs. She's whatever, whatever. But you can hear when she is congested. You can really hear when she's congested. Sorry, I was actually trying to mess with that. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. You can hear when she's congested, and when she's been on the stuff, and I'm not going to specify anything because you don't know, with stuff like methamphetamine, a lot of people think, oh, you have to smoke it. No, you don't. Cocaine, methamphetamine, crack cocaine, all of that stuff is either snortable, smokable, ingestible, digestible. It can be absorbed in any way, shape, fashion, or form. Okay? When we use it in the hospital, when we use cocaine, believe it or not, in the hospital, we typically use it for nosebleeds in the emergency department, unless it's contraindicated. But if there's a nosebleed that somebody has and they can't get the bleeding to stop, they'll come into the emergency room. In the emergency room, they have cocaine that they use. It causes what they call vasoconstriction. So it squeezes those little blood vessels inside the nose real tight. It also has a numbing effect. So if you've ever gone to the dentist, you've probably had Novocaine. If you take the Novo off and change it to Coke, you have cocaine, Novocaine, cane. It comes from the same plant. So anyway, it has a numbing effect. So the cocaine actually has that vasoconstrictive action, so it helps stop that nosebleed. So that's why in medicine we actually still use it. It's not very often. It's not very often, but it's still there, believe it or not. Um, and of course, Novocaine is not the same effect as cocaine in all situations, but the numbing effect, obviously, if you're getting dental work or if you have to get stitches because you cut yourself really bad, like Amber Lynn did, they'll inject some Novocaine. It'll just numb the area for a little bit, and then you get sent on your way. But where was I going with that? Oh, so anyway, yeah, the drugs themselves can be. This is really gross. And if you watch Gary Unfiltered, he loves to go after Natter. He's mentioned, and I don't think he's completely correct on this, that the reason why Natter has trouble pulling things apart with his fingertips is because he's potentially injecting his drugs under his fingernails. That is a huge stretch, because you can't. He does get his hands pretty close to the camera very often. That is a huge stretch. What I think it is, and you can see his fingernails, and I'm a former nail biter too. Like when I was a kid, I used to bite them down to the knuckle until they bled. I was a severe nail biter. Um, and even today, like if I go and try and get like a manicure, all the nail artists are like, "Did you bite your nails at some point in time?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" It's because my nail beds are really small. And I still to this day, and it's because I'm a nurse, I keep my nails very, very short, but my nail beds are actually very, very small, and they can tell when you are a nail biter because your nail beds are very small because you bit them down to the quick. I mean, like ooh. But if you look at Natter's fingers and his fingernails, if you catch a little glimpse every now and again when he's flailing around in the kitchen and he gets his hand up into the camera, I don't see any true evidence that he's um, injecting under his nails, which with drug addicts, that is actually a way that they do it, um, as to hide the evidence. But you can only do it so much before it really starts to show. So that's why I'm saying I don't think it's really the case with Nutter. What I think he's doing is that he is getting hopped up on the goofballs and biting his nails down to the quick because they are very stumpy. And my fellow nail biters, you guys will see the evidence too. So, anyway, let's get into this. Woo! I don't want to try and speed it up a little bit. Will it let me? There we go. Let's do 1.5. Because
Hey, orange chicken.
she's slow. Orange chicken.
You hear that?
Look at her eyes. She's showing paranoia.
I know, this collab was really crappy on my part. I'm sorry. You guys should watch Bay Nations. They did an amazing job. They always do put in effort. I do, but not nearly enough. I don't put.
She's getting, I think she calls it hamburger eyes. I don't really refer to it as hamburger eyes here. She's really droopy. Now, full confession, I'm 44 years old. At the age of, I think, 16 or 17, I tried shrooms for the very first time. And I think I only did them maybe 2 or 3 times in my entire span of 44 years. Okay. But I do remember what it felt like. That's why I only did them like 2 or 3 times. And it's just, they weren't really my thing. But I remember that droopy eye feeling way back when I was like 17. I still remember how it felt. We were all there. Nobody's perfect. People have tried them. But these days, I'm suspecting that she is still doing these shrooms. Now, she keeps saying they're legal, they're legal, they're legal, they're legal. They're not. In Canada, they are not. Um, they are under a special circumstance of microdosing, yes. But when it comes to microdosing, it's like a not feeling that effect kind of situation type deal. Um, because what a lot of doctors like to do, what a lot of people like to do is, and this is what we learn in nursing school too, is that it's a start low, go slow approach. So, for example, if you have a patient, for example, I'll put it this way, my nortriptyline, when the doctor first put me on it, the prescription was originally written as take one pill, excuse me, one pill every night at bedtime. It's 10 milligram dose. After 14 days, increase the dose to two at bedtime, and that's it. So that's the start low, go slow approach. Now, when it comes to microdosing with mushrooms, with the quote unquote magic mushrooms or whatever, in Canada, they, I think, are decriminalized, which means it's kind of like the equivalent of a parking ticket if you get caught with them. But in the microdosing sense that they're legal and they're medicinal and so on and so forth, it's like majorly tiny doses so that it helps that part of the brain that it's supposed to be helping, but it's not rendering you a blubbering mess like we're seeing right here.
But so nothing. I don't want to lay down on my bed.
And if we go back to our little
Yeah, this
pupil
was a
check,
crappy creepypasta.
remember
I'm so sorry, guys.
hallucinogens,
Why
big
is my heart not
pupils,
gonna hit
right?
here? Or any here? I want it to be so bad. Look at my hair. You know, I had to talk to the news because of that thing. The cheese graveyard. It is just edible. No, edibles and moon rock.
No, it's
THC,
not.
baby.
No, no. Her eyes are
Mm,
so dilated. THC does not do that to your eyes.
yeah.
And her paranoia too. I mean, THC does cause some paranoia.
What time is it?
Or I should say marijuana. I don't want to,
Oh, itchy stomach.
yeah. Oh, that's another thing. I wanted to kind of cover the whole itchiness issue because we know recently she spent it in some seedy motel with that weird sex chair thing that she claimed she didn't know was a sex chair, which we obviously know is bullshit. A lot of people have been saying, oh, she's so itchy. She has scabies. No, she doesn't have scabies. Um, I sadly, as part of the par for the nursing course, we get exposed to a lot of stuff. Been exposed to scabies, and yeah, a very long time ago, I did actually get them. Scabies in a normal adult, okay? Scabies, like to explain what they actually literally are body lice. They burrow under your skin. They're like like head lice, but head lice actually lay their eggs in your hair, in hair follicles. But the common denominators, they like warm places. So scabies like to burrow between your fingers, between your toes, in your armpits, your groin, and for women, of course, it's going to be more under the breasts, depending on how large your breasts are, um, and in other warm areas. The area that she's been scratching is, and a lot of people, oh, well, that's right around under her breast. It's on the surface of her belly, like over her liver, over her stomach, over her spleen and pancreas area. It's not covered by her breasts because she'll lift up her shirt and show it. That's not where scabies go. It's too surface area for her. Or I should say, it's too cool of a surface area for them. Plus, she's not showing the itchiness coming from anywhere else. And that's another thing that people don't know. Opioids cause itching. Not in everybody. I don't get itchy when I'm on opioids. Okay? That is a side effect. Yes. I'm not denying it. But it's not a side effect for everybody. We know she doesn't take baths regularly. She has extremely poor hygiene when it comes to keeping every area of her body clean. She's constantly spilling food. She's definitely a diabetic. She's definitely experiencing liver failure, whether it's slow and insidious, because she's taxing her liver constantly. I don't want to say it's full on liver failure. I'll take that back. It's coming. Okay, I'll just say it that way. It's coming. Um, but as a diabetic myself, I'm as well as a nurse, I know that with kidney failure caused by diabetes, you get a buildup of all of those bad things that your kidneys are meant to filter out. Your kidneys are no longer functioning. All that stuff is building up. It's the same with your liver. Your kidneys and your liver act as filters, right? They filter all the bad shit out and keep all the good shit in. And if she's a diabetic with uncontrolled diabetes, she's been drinking heavily lately, she's been eating god awful, like way worse than I think I've ever seen her eat. Oh my God. Like I just, my head, I still can't wrap myself around how bad she's been eating. Oh my God. Like not a single vegetable in like 3 months. It's, it's mind boggling. Wow. Um, all that buildup, if you're in liver failure, you could get a buildup of bile salts. That's a byproduct of your liver. And one of the cardinal signs of that buildup of bile salts is it comes to the surface of the skin and it causes really bad itching. That's just one sign. But also with the kidneys, when they're failing, it causes, nitrous wastes and all kinds of, urea and all kinds of bad stuff to back up and build up in your system. And the only way for it to come out is it starts to slowly come through your skin and it causes a lot of itching. So when people say, oh, she's diabetic, it's the diabetes that's causing the itching, it's not necessarily that it's the diabetes itself, it's the diabetes causes kidney failure. Kidney failure, therefore, causes the itching, if that makes sense. So, anyway, but yeah, she's been itchy, 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 but it's not opioid abuse. I'm just trying to push my own opinion that it's not opioid abuse. Okay, it's not opioid abuse.
Okay, is there anything creepy we can talk about then? If you guys want, we can.
And you hear how dry her mouth
No, you're
is.
right. I don't know what it is. I do enjoy making videos here and there, but I do also largely enjoy live streaming because,
You want attention?
oh my god, my pupils are big. Holy shit. Kind
Yeah.
of like that when I take edibles.
No,
They're not that big, actually.
no, they're huge.
They are kind of.
You're
Oh,
in the
all the lights are
brightest
on.
room possible. They are massive.
Shit. They're not that big, no. Maybe the edible can do that? I don't know.
No.
She's on. No, I would be like definitely more sniffing and everything, no. And more, no, for sure. Um,
She
oh,
definitely sounds
I'm tired.
congested, but not really more than.
Oh, mushroom picking? No. I did.
But she's doing the.
Yes. No, I didn't, Brooke. I did not. I swear.
I swear.
I'm
Now
really
you. Oh,
tired.
that's her biggest tell. You guys. Oh, that is her biggest tell. I swear. I swear. I count how many times she says that. That is her biggest tell when she's lying. I swear. I swear. No, you're lying. You're lying. Whenever she swears on something, guarantee you, she's lying.
If I did, I wouldn't be tired. Something's not right. What do you mean?
What do you mean?
No, guys. Whatever you're thinking, think away from drugs. There's no drugs other than THC. It's it. I swear on my grandmother's soul, and I hate to do that
She just said it again. I swear. I swear. I swear. Bitch, you can swear up and down. It is obvious. God. Does she really think the whole world is like dumber than a sack of hammers? I'm trying to keep it clean. I'm sorry, but seriously.
because it's so sacred to me. But for things that I am, for my word to the death, that is something I will say. I swear. Like I don't know how else to prove it that I mean it. You know what I mean?
And the hair follicle test, that's okay. So some drugs are deposited in your hair follicles, and as the keratin grows out, the longer it can. Drugs can be found in certain parts of your hair. Certain drugs can be found in certain parts of your hair. Um, it's, however, it's kind of sketchy. I don't really trust that version. A simple blood test is the easiest and most definitive. Um, if you're as recreational as she is, which basically means she's on something all day, every day, it'll be found. With as hardcore of a user as she is. Now, if you take one puff of one joint one time, and 3 months later you go to get a not a blood test, a urine test to detect for marijuana, it's not going to show up. But if you're an all day, every day chronic user like my old roommate was, it's going to show up. Okay. The more time that elapses, the less that should be found. But we know at this point she was an all day, everyday user. She was an all day, everyday user. And the problem is that with that high of, I'm just going to call it an amphetamine high, or the uppers, whatever you want to call it, whatever she is on that is keeping her up, she's constantly trying to counteract it with something that's bringing her back down. But right here, mm-mm, it's definitely not just THC. Okay, it's just not, and it doesn't. THC doesn't help constrict your pupils back down from being super blown because as long as that stuff is in your system, they're going to either stay constricted or they're going to stay um, dilated. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word.
I swear, I swear, I swear. Nothing. No prescription drugs. Absolute rubbish. Nothing at all. There was no Xanax. Nothing of that sort. Nothing. I
Lies.
look pale. You just seen another orb? It's probably a fruit fly. Because there's fruit flies around here.
God,
I'm
that's so
slurring?
gross.
No, I'm not.
Eh, I'm gonna kind of go on the mouth and jaw movements. Yes, I don't quite necessarily deny it, but she's also got the icky dry mouth. Um, with the icky dry mouth, you're gonna move your mouth around a lot. We used to refer to it as coke jaw when people were on some kind of upper, and you see that jaw just moving side to 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 side. But if you can hear her dry mouth right now. So I don't fully ascribe. I think she's definitely coming off of them, but the coke jaw thing doesn't necessarily stick around constantly. It's not a constant I could be wrong. Everybody's different, but I don't know. Pursing of the lips is not part of it. It's more the jaw movement. The
Where is the
clicking of the
orb?
tongue, maybe.
Excuse me.
You don't really smack your lips as much.
I want
Just
to do my nails.
jaw movement. Jaw, jaw, jaw.
It goes from your left. Ugh, what? I don't see an orb. Tell it to go away. Who is it? Unless it's my grandmother, but please don't come over here right now. Oh, I think it's a fruit fly. My fucking sideburn. Go away. What do you mean I'm off?
She's really trying to play
Over my
stupid.
grandma? Oh no. I can't break. No, I don't have a secret. I swear. Why you guys? Nobody's here. Oh god. You guys are forever gonna think I'm just hiding something.
Yeah, because you always are. Poorly at that. God, she's so annoying.
We should get lacrimas. No, what was I gonna have? Almonds? Oh, I'm freezing. Ooh.
Yeah, so that goes back into, you always notice too that she's complaining that she's freezing. That goes into like vasoconstriction, okay, which we've discussed before. But if you think of all those little veins, all those little arteries, they're actually controlled by little tiny involuntary muscles, right? And they constrict real tight. It's just a mechanism to shunt the blood away from the most distant extremities, so like your fingertips and and the tips of your toes, to keep that blood at your heart. So when they constrict, when they get all tight, you're not getting as much blood to your fingers and your toes, and you start to feel cold, start to feel really chilly. That's kind of what happens when you're on uppers. But I know Chantal has a lot of ticks, and a lot of people have been pointing them out. Like, I didn't even notice them at first because I just thought they were her, like, little, just kind of weird behaviors. But I noticed that, yeah, when she's on something that has her up, she does it a lot more. So she definitely has some kind of neurological thing going on that causes these tics, but they only get worse. And I noticed that she shivers a lot, like with the ticks, if that kind of makes sense. Like they kind of go hand in hand. Um, they're there whether or not she's up on something, but they get worse when she's up on something, which is very common with a lot of people who have neurological problems. Unfortunately, sometimes use substances to try and calm those neurological problems, and it becomes an addiction. Sometimes you have people who have really bad Tourette syndrome that went either undiagnosed or untreated or is very severe, and they turn into alcoholics because the alcohol suppresses those tics and those twitches. It's a very unfortunate, becoming more and more rare, thankfully, but in the realm of things, it's becoming a bit more sad and unfortunate that older generations were having to suffer with things like Tourette's because we didn't have a cure. We didn't even have a diagnosis for it, at, or treatment. There's a lot of things that are out there that there's no cure, diagnosis, or treatment for it. And unfortunately, a lot of people have to turn to drugs in order to suppress. some of those problems that are very, I don't want to say curable, but manageable. Um, Case in point, homelessness. A lot of, and again, when I say a lot, I just see a large percentage are people with mental health issues. The reason why they're homeless is because they never got the mental health help that they needed. And because of in the United States, mental health is not taken seriously, it's not treated well, it's not part of your insurance, it's unaffordable. Um, there's people learn to cope with their mental health problems, i.e., Chantal, by managing it with legal or illegal substances. And the problem unfortunately becomes so bad that they cannot function in quote unquote normal society and end up out on the streets. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it because you have people out there with things like schizophrenia, which mental health help wise, schizophrenia is pretty much the only physiological mental health issue that we know. And I'm saying physiological as in like it is, you can actually use an MRI, you can use contrast, CT scans, all that stuff, and you can actually see it. Whereas the rest of most mental health issues is actually a self report, self determination with a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Um, it's based on subjective, whereas schizophrenia is based on objective. So schizophrenia is actually measurable. Depression, anxiety, bipolar, borderline personality, antisocial personality, all that stuff, that's more subjective information. It's what the patient reports to the doctor and what the doctor pulls out of the, diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders. Okay. So, but schizophrenia is something you can actually see on an MRI. You can see those parts of the lobes of the brain that can actually, da, 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 and the person can actually say, I'm having an auditory hallucination. That person can say, I'm having a visual hallucination, or some of the rare ones is they can actually, any of the senses, any of the senses, if you can touch, you can taste a hallucination. How crazy is that? Sorry, that's really, no, that's me. Oh, that came out as mean. I meant it as like, how cool would that be to have a hallucination that you're actually tasting food? That's what I meant. I would love to hallucinate that I'm eating ice cream right now, all right? So that way I don't actually get tempted to actually eat ice cream. That came out so wrong, you guys. I apologize. I didn't mean it like that. Oh, that just came out so wrong. Anyway, but I would imagine though, some of those hallucinations though are incredibly terrifying. I mean, like, I don't want to imagine having an I guess it's oral hallucination, like you're tasting something like poop. Yuck. Ugh. I wouldn't want to imagine that kind of thing. Which, I mean, I would love to have a hallucination. I'm tasting blueberries or a nice tall stack of pancakes or something like that. I wouldn't want to have a hallucination that I was tasting caca. No, 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 no. But any of the other hallucinations, auditory, you're hearing stuff or seeing stuff, like, and again, this is, go to Gary Unfiltered, or his other channel, his main channel is Bipolar Corner. Um, and he goes into depth. He's actually recorded himself having those hallucinations. Um, and he's just a wonderful, wonderful soul for sharing that kind of stuff. It's amazing that there's people that are out there that are willing to share that side of their life, because it can be very embarrassing. It can be humiliating and degrading because, I mean, you're hearing and seeing and tasting and touching things that don't exist to everybody else. So, I mean, if you really want to get philosophical, you can kind of go with humans all do that, but we're not going to go into that right now. This is already getting super long. I apologize, you guys. If you've already stuck around this long, please leave a comment yelling at me because I'm too chatty or whatever. I'm good with that. Um, I'm actually just going to cut it off because you guys can clearly see she's on something. She's, I have a very scary suspicion that coming up very soon, we're going to all be witness to something we really don't want to see live on camera. And I'm not talking about drunk. I'm I'm waiting for that moment. Now, you guys, I know a lot of you guys like to say, "Oh, no cow tipping. No cow tipping." But if you actually do go into the YouTube terms of service, what guidelines fall under harassment and bullying, because, she loves to throw that one out there. What guidelines fall under, unsafe behaviors if you're witnessing them, dangerous behaviors. YouTube actually encourages people to call the police, call 911. If you see somebody is on live doing something like literally on live running through the busiest freeway in their area on foot, you are allowed to call 911. If anything, YouTube encourages you to call 911 for that because they don't want the entire world on live stream seeing somebody get run over by a car. So, you guys don't feel like you don't have to call the police um, wherever Chantal might be, or any of these YouTubers. If they're on live and you see like the left half of their face suddenly droop, by all means call 911. Absolutely call 911, you guys. If you see a YouTuber playing with a gun, if you see a YouTuber playing with dangerous weapons, if you see them, doing anything, and I'm kind of pissed about this the other night when she had her drunk stream. I have a very sneaking suspicion that there's this person who posted something to the effect that, don't worry, the police have been called or emergency services have been called because Chantal was drunk as shit on live, pissed off the entire world, went after the entire world. Um, but she was dangerously drunk. And a lot of people were getting really concerned and basically screaming, Pete, get her to the hospital. Because to God's honest truth, I'm not even going to lie, seeing her drink that much, knowing her health history, I had the worst suspicion she was not going to wake up the next morning. And then there was a comment posted by somebody named Maple something something, and I could have sworn that I've seen that name in the past. I just don't remember where or when. Um, they're claiming to be her Foodie Beauty's cousin. Don't worry, emergency services have already been called, blah, 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 blah. I have a feeling that Maple Person is a sock account for Pete's, or possibly even Dee Dee. And they said that, emergency services would be called, so don't worry, you can't be called. They called, and then like a couple days later, Foodie actually went on and goes, I'm surprised nobody after that called the police, called this, that, and the other, et cetera, et cetera. So it tells me that, yeah, whoever that person was, they were lying. And in a way, they were cow tipping. And I don't really appreciate that because she was dangerously drunk that night. And other people have said it too. She's one rolled ankle from being bedbound, permanently bedbound. So I really, really, really got worried that night that she got that plastered. And yeah, it was extremely concerning. Extremely concerning. Um, so you guys, don't be afraid. I actually hate to admit this, but yeah, I do have their emergency services set aside because that's just who I am. I know I come off, screaming this fucking bitch, but all in all, her life is actually important. She doesn't seem to understand that. The people that follow her actually genuinely do have concern for her. And a lot of us don't want to see her die on stream. If she dies, everybody's going to die. From the day you come out of the womb, you're going to die. That's guaranteed by 9 out of 10 doctors. Okay? Everybody's going to die. That's a guarantee. But not 2,000 people don't need to see it. Okay? With that, though, I don't want to end it on a sour note. So, as you guys know, I've been going through my own little health struggles lately. And so I've been trying as much as I can to get up and walk every single day. Trying to just do things for my own mental health, to understand that, what I'm going through, it will get better. If not, I will adjust and overcome. So you guys just remember, no matter what you're going through, you can adjust and overcome. Do something good for yourself today, whether it's cleaning out that junk drawer in the kitchen, whether it's writing a single page in your journal, whether it's taking a walk outside, or hell, whether it's just being awake and being you. Do something good for yourself. Treat yourself like you need to be treated. Don't go to 5 different fast food restaurants, picking up snacks to go to the next one along the way, which, God, oh my God. I'm sure you guys all saw that. She went to Starbucks, had to stop at Taco Bell for a snack break so she could make it all the way to BK to get her nashi. Jesus fucking Christ. If anything, please, you guys, don't eat like that. Oh God. Even at my biggest, I was 283 pounds, I still didn't eat like that. Fuck. Ah. I don't know how she does it. But anyway, you guys, you all have a good day. And I'm sorry this has been going on for an hour and a half. Oh my God, I'm so terrible. If you're still around, if you like this, if you don't like it, leave a dislike. Again, I'm not trying to do this to get monetized. I'm not trying to do this to make money. I just do this because, well, it's what I want to do for myself for today. After my walk, of course. I took a walk earlier. I made it 6 times around my block, and I didn't have to use my stick to prop myself up. That was my challenge for the day, and I did it. It was a little scary, but I had my stick, but I did it without the stick. I'm so proud of me. So you guys have a good day. I'm going to shut up now. Yeah. So hopefully you learned a little something from this today, too. And if anything, again, if you have any questions, please, please, for the love of God, talk to your doctor about it, okay? Y'all have a lovely day. And don't forget to do something good for yourself today.